Okay, this video I'm going to talk about layers. We kind of talked about layers last time we had class, but I'm going to also talk about masking. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is we're going to go to a website called Unsplash. And all the pictures, it's just .com, are these high resolution images that are free to use. And you're going to choose an image that you can take part of it and make it colored, and then the rest of it is going to be black and white. So any image that kind of already has black and white in it, like something like this, is not really going to be ideal. You want to choose something that's pretty colorful, but that you can take out a part of it and it will remain color and the rest will be changed to black and white. So again, image like this isn't going to work because the background's kind of white. You see this a lot actually with wedding photos and some other things. So let's see. I thought it would be a lot easier. I'm just going to actually search in here. I'm going to search for hummingbird. Okay, so I'm going to download this image, and I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and I'm going to open that image. So we're just going to open that image directly, File, Open, and you're going to find the image that you have downloaded. Okay, so we talked about this before, but the first thing that you want to do when you open an image in Photoshop is you want to duplicate that background. So we can do that a couple ways. One of the ways is that you can right click and choose duplicate layer. You can also go up to the fly down menu, choose duplicate layer. You can click on your layer and you can drag it to the new symbol, and that will duplicate it. And you can also push the option key and drag, and that will duplicate it. So we actually do need 3 copies of this. So in this case, we're going to have 3 of the same copy. This first one is going to be our original image or our source image. You can call it whatever you want. And then when we rename that, we want to make sure that it's locked, and we're going to hide it. Okay, so again, we talked about this, but anytime we are working with an image that we're going to alter, you want to make sure that you have kind of that original image in there, just because if you screw up anything and make any destructive changes, you don't have to worry about it being totally messed up. You can just replace it with that particular layer. All right, this middle one here we're going to call black and white. And it's not going to be black and white yet, but we will change it to black and white. And this top one we're going to change the name to color. Okay, so right now we have 3 layers. One should be color, one should be black and white, one should be the original image, which should be locked and turned off. Okay. Now we have to actually get down to the business of changing this to black and white. And I think I mentioned last class that there are 2 ways to work. There's destructive and non-destructive. We're going to try and use as many non-destructive techniques as possible. But for this particular project, we're actually going to make a destructive change. And so that destructive change is going to be to make that layer black and white. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hide that color layer, and we're going to select the black and white layer. So you know a layer selected when it's highlighted like this. And so once you select that black and white layer, you're going to go over to where it says image, and you're going to go down to where it says adjustments, and you're actually going to choose black and white. There are 2 ways to make something black and white. One of them is to choose this black and white adjustment, and the other one is to go to your hue and saturation and take your saturation down to -100. But we're just going to use the black and white option here. So when you choose this black and white option, it actually allows you to change the values of the image that you have. So let's say you wanted to take your cyans and make them brighter or darker, you could do that. Okay, it'll show you that. I'm going to go back to where it says auto. That's going to give me the defaults, and I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so now that image is black and white, that particular layer. And so now when I turn on my other layer, you can see the color toggling between color and black and white. Okay, so we're going to go back to our color layer, and we're going to make that selected. And what we're going to do is we talked about our selection tools last week, and hopefully you remember, but there's a couple different ones. There's the marquee tool, there's the lasso tool, there's both lasso, polygonal lasso, magnetic lasso, and then we've also got our quick selection and magic wand. For this, I'm actually going to use my magnetic lasso, and you can use whatever selection tool is going to work best for your particular image. But basically I want to select the part of the image that I want to remain colored. Okay, so right now I'm selecting the hummingbird. If I don't do a perfect job, because you notice that my magnetic lasso is kind of getting a little unruly, but if I don't do a perfect job, that's okay, because I can easily correct my selection later. So the key is just to kind of get a general selection, and then we can refine the selection later. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit and try to get that done quickly. Okay, so there's my selection. You see there's a lot that I missed. Once you make a selection, up on your control bar, while you still have the selection tool selected, you'll see that there's a select and mask option. I'm going to click on that. That's going to bring us into a whole nother editing area. Now, yours probably looks like this. Over here on the right hand side, you'll see that there's the properties panel, which gives you a lot of different options, and on the left there's a whole nother toolbar, and that toolbar gives you a couple different selection tools. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the view option. So the first option is your onion skin, which just means that anything that you didn't have selected is like very thin and see-through. The next option is your marching ants, which is what we saw on the page before, on the out of this dialog box. Then you have your overlay. Overlay, you can see that my selection here is a little bit wonky. I've got a little bit that I need to select. The next option is what it would look like if you put it on top of black, on top of white. Then you kind of have just like a black and white image. Wow, you can see how jagged those edges are. And then the last one is on layers, which this is what my finished product is actually going to look like. But I'm going to go to overlay for now, because that's the easiest for me to actually see what my selection looks like. You can change the opacity of that overlay. You can also change the color of the overlay. So let's say blue isn't going to work for me, but let's say you were working in something that was red, then working with blue actually might be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to make mine red again. So you have a couple options here. I want to add to this selection, and I can do that a couple of ways. I can use my quick selection tool, which we already know how to use. I can use this refine edge tool, which I'm not going to really talk about right now. And then I also can use my brush tool, which is basically going to just allow me to paint in and out. So I can make my brush larger or smaller by using the bracket tools. And basically I can paint back in this part of the selection that I kind of missed here. So even if you don't get things fully the way that you want them here, we can always sort it out later. My paintbrush is kind of being a little delayed. You'll also notice that there's some options here, like I can smooth out my edges. I missed a little bit there. I can feather my edges. I don't want to smooth my edges really. I can feather my edges, which means that they get a little bit softer. I can increase the contrast, which is going to give those edges like a hard edge. And I can also shift the edge. So again, still, if you push the option key, it's going to reverse that selection, the ability to take out of the selection. Wow, we really didn't do a great job on this. So once I make those adjustments, I can hit OK down here at the bottom. What that's going to do is it's going to take me back to my image with my dancing ants. You can see those dancing ants. You notice that my selection still isn't perfect, but I'm going to show you a way to refine that even after we're done. Okay, so once you have that selection kind of refined the way you want it, you're going to make sure that you're on that top layer. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the bottom of the layers panel where there is a rectangle with a circle in it. It kind of looks like a Japanese flag. And that's your layer mask. And what happens when I click that is you might notice, I'm going to zoom out here, is that on the right of my colored thumbnail, there's another thumbnail that showed up that's in black and white. And what that is a layer mask. And that mask allows you to hide part of your image so that you can't see it. Now, if I hide the black and white image, you'll notice that there's just this transparent background with just black and white checks. And if you look closely at the thumbnail, you'll notice that the white part, what's showing up of the picture is the white part. And so white is showing and black is hidden. Okay, so our image is still there. If I hide the mask for a second, I'm doing that by just holding down the shift key and clicking on the mask. You'll see that our image is still there, but it's just hidden. And so what's nice about this is that it's non-destructive. We can edit the mask. We can still have our image in there. So you'll see that there are parts here, like right here at the neck, that I kind of missed. So how I can add that back in is I can make sure, you'll notice that if you toggle between your layer and your mask, there's these little white outlines around it. And if you're on your mask, okay, so this only works when you're on your mask. If you do this while you're on your thumbnail, what's going to happen is you're actually going to paint. So we're going to choose our paintbrush. If I'm on my thumbnail, I'm actually painting on my image, which is destructive. This is the reason we make this copy here. If I'm on my mask, what happens is if I paint with white, so I'll make sure that my white is in the foreground. You can do that by clicking on this little curved arrow or hitting the X on your keyboard. If white's in my back, if I'm painting with white, let me make my brush a little bigger. What's going to happen is my color is going to come back in. Now this might be a little bit easier to see up here. So when I paint with white, my color comes back in. If I switch that to black and I start painting with black, my color disappears again. So this gives you a really easy way to modify. Let me get a regular brush here. Modify my picture. So if I'm painting with that black, it's going to start hiding that extra green that I've got up there that I don't want here as well. Let's make that a little bit bigger now. And then I can really modify this image. So basically I want you to do 2 different images. And also when you're working with these images from Unsplash, it's really important to kind of make the image a little bit smaller. So we can go to where it says image size and we can make this, you'll notice now it's 50, well, it's basically 60 by 40 inches, okay, and the resolution is 72. It doesn't need to be that big. We can just go ahead and say like 12 inches and hit OK. What this is going to do is it's just going to make our image a little bit smaller, so it's going to make it easier to upload it to your learning management system and save it on your computer without having a huge file. Okay, when we save this, so basically that's it. Okay, we've got this mask on here that's hiding all the color, and then you have the black and white underneath. So I want you to try doing this 2 different times with 2 different images. You're going to make sure you just go to Save As. You're going to save this as Dramatic Black and White. And then underscore in your name. And you're going to make sure that you save it as a Photoshop file and then also as a Photoshop PDF. So you go to Save As again, and down here where it says Format, you're going to go ahead and change that to a Photoshop PDF. You're going to hit Save. OK. And here, remember, instead of high quality print, change that to smallest file size, and you're going to hit Save PDF. And then that's done. So it's a pretty easy tutorial that will hopefully help you understand masks. If you don't understand masks, the next time we're together, I'll be sure to explain it a little bit more thoroughly. All right, if you have any questions, make sure you email me and let me know.